Oh, hello everybody, welcome back to the show. We're joined once again by Richard Tice, the leader of Reform UK. Hello Richard, how are you?
Hi there, Mar. I'm great form. Thanks for having me back. I obviously didn't misbehave the last time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your party now because you had a recent press conference and you, as we said it on the channel, presented an alternative government plan. It's a emergency recovery plan economically with the cost of living. And you know what's sad? It's sad that it has to be a smaller party coming up with something serious like that rather than an actual party in government. What's going on with that?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think that's what lots of people are asking in terms of why is this government ignoring what is staring it in the face in so many ways, and it's being told by so many different economics commentators, by people on their back benches who understand the economics and how you create growth. But to be absolutely clear, Maya, I've never been more anxious and more concerned about the economic position the country is in my lifetime, because I think that we're facing the gravest economic crisis since the Second World War,
Yeah.
because we've got the combination of four different crises that are coming together at the same time, simultaneously. And I don't think that's happened before, even in the 1970s, which was a difficult time, and with the strikes on as we
Yeah.
speak, or about to happen, people are sort of referring back to the 70s. But at least in most of the 70s, you had growth.
Absolutely.
So,
I was going to say, obviously, we reported it on the channel when you did the press conference, but if you were to kind of do a short summary of what was the package that you presented for the problems that we have, that would be great.
so the four crises are that we've got a growth crisis. We've got the lowest growth forecasts for the last 70 years. And we've also got we've got a tax crisis because we've got the highest taxes for 70 years. And those two are directly linked. That's not a coincidence. If you have higher taxes, you have lower growth. So that's two crises. The third crisis is inflation. We've got the highest inflation for 30 years. Anyone under the age of 40 just hasn't seen or experienced or understand what is going on. So inflation at 11% and rising north rapidly. And then we've got a productivity crisis, and no one talks about that enough. But in the last 20 years, productivity in the public sector has dropped by about 15% or so, whilst in the manufacturing sector, it's grown by 40%. Just imagine if our public services, our public sector was 40% more efficient.
Yeah.
How wonderful that would be, how much money that would save. And here's the really tragic thing, Maya. We've now got record numbers of people on out of work benefits. 5.3 million people. That's 1 in 8 of the working age population. Okay, that's just a disaster. It's 1.5 million more than pre-COVID.
Yep.
And it's a tragedy for the individuals themselves
Yep.
being out of work. It's a tragedy for their families, if they've got children growing up in a household of joblessness. And look, there's obviously some people, there's a few shirkers in there for sure.
Sure, yeah.
But much of it is the system is trapping people where it doesn't pay to go to work.
Yeah.
And, this is really serious. It's tragic for their communities. And the lost talent to the economy, to themselves, it's a catastrophe. And so that's the productivity crisis. And we're told there's a labour shortage. And last year, we gave a record number of almost 1 million visas for people to come here in the UK. And you've got all sorts of Remainers claiming, oh, it's all woe, because of Brexit. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. The reality is we've got the labour force here in the United Kingdom, but we've got a structurally deficient, flawed benefit system that's trapping good people in the system.
Yeah.
So what's the answer to it? Very simply, there's a bloke who's the Chancellor of the Exchequer who I've renamed. I've renamed him Rishi Corbyn because
That's an insult
his
to Corbyn.
solution, yeah, I'm not sure if it's Comrade Sunak or Rishi Corbyn, but let's focus on Rishi Corbyn. So the Rishi Corbyn solution to this crisis is to raise personal taxes, to raise corporate taxes,
Yep.
to raise government spending, and then to give handouts and create a culture of subsidies and dependency,
Yeah.
which is why you've got this record number of people on out of work benefits. And that's a disaster.
Yeah.
He's doing things Jeremy Corbyn couldn't have dreamt of in his wildest, most exotic dreams.
Yeah.
And that's why I invented the name last year. You remember? Consocialism.
Consocialists, yeah.
I was the first to that.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's absolutely true. There's not a wafer of difference between high taxation from the Labour Party or the Consocialist Party. And the result of Rishi Corbyn's solution is you get lower growth, you get high inflation remaining high, and the disincentive to work remains as it currently is, with that record 5.3 million out of work. 1 in 8. And who's paying for the 1 in 8? The rest of us.
Yeah.
Those of us that are working our socks off. It is truly a road to ruin. And the analogy I use, it's a bit like water going over a waterfall. Before the water's got to the waterfall, right, you can build a dam and you can stop it. You can change course. Once the water's gone over the edge, you can't get it back. It's gone. Game over. Water over. Finished. And if we're not careful, if we don't get this back in the next 2 or 3 years, it is game over for the UK as a dynamic, entrepreneurial, hopefully high growth economy, because that culture of dependency and state handouts on everything and low growth and ever higher taxes, you're on a treadmill to hell. So the good news is, Maya, is there is a solution, but it requires change rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, this might seem like some people would say, "Oh, a radical plan," but it's also very common sense, mainstream politics essentially. I wanted to kind of ask because I'm gonna a lot of our subscribers send questions, and there's one key question about the border security, which I'm going to ask in a second. But why do you think that the mainstream media, as we said before, when we reported your press conference on this channel, there's absolutely no focus or kind of attention on a third party like Reform UK. There's even though what you said, as I said, it's still mainstream politics, and it's sort of thing that your Skies and BBC should really like. It's just normal politics, and there's no way that you guys could even have a platform enough to even have the level playing field to fight against the main two parties. What's going on there?
Look, it's difficult. No one's doubting that. There's so much noise in the main two parties, and there's by-elections going on that, and it's a product of the system, really, the first past the post system. But we're saying, look, this is really serious. We've got to get it out there. We're getting it out there in a variety of ways. And the deeper the crisis gets, the more and more people are saying, something's got to give, something's got to change. I'm hearing it on the doorstep. People are saying, it's time for something different. There's nothing coming out of the main two parties. People are increasingly disillusioned. And, building a brand doesn't happen overnight in any walk of life, whether it's in business, whether it's in the charitable sector, and equally in the political sector. But, we're making gradual progress, and this is, our solution is a really serious plan. And the longer this crisis goes on, I think the more people will reach out and say, well, actually, this is a better plan. And it's big, bold, but it really does the job. It's this is a stimulus of over £70 billion. But not only do we show how it works, but we show how you pay for it. And you've got to incentivize people back to work. So what you do is you lift the threshold before anybody starts paying any income tax from 12.5 grand currently to 20 grand a year. That's £30 a week. That's real money for those on low incomes, low pay. That's a massive difference. So that increases the gap between current benefit levels and going out to work.
Yeah.
The second thing you do is you've got to cut taxes on a variety of crucial consumer goods. Because if you cut taxes on consumer goods, you're reducing the price someone pays. And that means, guess what? If you reduce the price, you're reducing inflation. That's pretty key. So we should scrap VAT on energy bills, which is currently 5%. a Brexit bonus opportunity that this Brexit government has decided not to do. That's over 100 quid a year per household. You've got to scrap the environmental levies, which is about another 160 pounds a year per household, because 25% of everybody's electricity bill is basically an environmental tax to pay for the renewable subsidies to the people who own the offshore wind farms, who are making vast sums, vast profits, windfall profits, because all those subsidies are inflation linked. And so it goes on. And then the other critical thing that we're all suffering with is fuel duty, fuel prices. So you've got to take 20 pence per litre, forget Rishi's pathetic 5 pence per litre, 20p a litre off tax, off the price of a litre of fuel. That's give or take 240, 250 quid a year for the average driver. This is real cash, real money. And the evidence is there always. If you cut taxes, you get more activity, you get higher growth. And with higher growth over the medium term, you'll get higher tax revenues and higher wages. So, and here's the thing, Matt, all of us in all our households, we're looking at all these bills and we're thinking, well, we've got to save something.
Yeah.
Many people might be saying, okay, how do I save 5 quid in 100?
Yeah.
Right. I want the government, and there's no talk about this anywhere in government. I want the government, they're spending our money, not their money. I want their bosses to say, yeah, every department, every single department, every floor of every office building, every council building, we've got to save 5 quid in 100. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what Margaret Thatcher used to call good housekeeping. We don't have that, do we?
If they apply that good housekeeping, guess what? All of a sudden, they'll save over £50 billion a year.
Yeah.
Now, I'll accept it might take a year to get there. So I'll let them off 25 million in the first year. But in the second year, they've got to save 55 billion, right? And then the final thing you do is you reduce VAT on everything from 20% to 18%. Again, that'll save about 300 quid a year per household.
Yeah.
And again, that helps reduce inflation. So these are all key things. And then finally, given that everything now, I mean, inflation is driven by higher energy prices.
Yeah.
We've got to become self-reliant on energy. We've got to become energy independent. And we've got this huge treasure, this pile of treasure under our feet called shale gas. This government, in I believe what is it's a matter of gross negligence to leave £1 trillion worth plus of our treasure that we all own.
They're not touching it.
To leave it under the floorboards. Would you or any of your viewers, Maya, if you inherit a house from a long lost aunt and the last thing she says to you is, oh, by the way, there's a pile of treasure under the floorboards equal to about half, maybe more of the value of the mortgage, but I couldn't be bothered to get it out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty sure you'd find a nice clean screwdriver, unscrew the floorboards, lift out the treasure, pay off the mortgage, and put the screws back. All right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about here, folks.
Exactly.
And the result of all these activities, you'd stimulate growth. We reckon our estimates by about 0.5% a year. You would reduce inflation in the first year by about 4% from the level it's at. That's significant. That starts to change the expectation of travel. And crucially, you encourage the incentive to work. And that's really important for everybody, the economy, but most importantly, for the individuals concerned.
This is, I mean, a very kind of sensible approach to politics. I mean, the key point from your explanation is not just the detailed policies that you have, it's also back to basics. The government should, as we said, whatever, like Matt saying, good housekeeping, or the way you said it, that if they treat it the way a normal person trying to do savings, they treat it the same way. The money that they have, which is our money, it will be much easier. And you would expect to hear it from at least the majority of sensible centre-left and centre-right politicians in Labour and Tories, but we don't. Which goes back to a lot of questions that we've been getting. And our political editor of the channel, Peter Barnes, actually wanted to ask you, you did mention brand building, and it takes time, obviously, with Reform UK. There's a lot of people who support you guys on the channel and or want to support you. And I'm guessing, obviously, you have the plan anyway, but right now, it will be great for the party and for the supporters if the brand building kind of accelerates within the next couple of years, because so right now the media don't even give you attention enough, but it would be good to have more Richard Tices, more faces, more superstars like yourself to kind of go on TV and write articles and all that, so that it doesn't just become just one party, one man.
Yeah, look, it's difficult. It's so difficult. The Daily Telegraph at the moment, they basically have a ban on articles from me.
What?
Yeah. It is as simple as that. So it ain't easy, but I'm very lucky we've got access through another TV channel, Talk TV.
Yeah.
So I'm on there every Sunday. David Bull, my deputy's on.
Yeah.
And look, it takes time. The key thing is, though, we're basically on 2-year countdown to the next general election. We're absolutely committed. We're going to have 600 candidates standing, give or take. So that's pretty much everywhere except Northern Ireland, where we won't stand. And that's the goal. I've got over 300 essentially lined up. Some have already started in certain constituencies around the country. For example, there's one constituency, a guy's working very hard. He's delivered over 20,000 leaflets already.
That's crazy.
We've got the by-elections. So we will just keep working away. And if I'm right on this, if the situation is as bad as it sounds, more and more people are going to say there has to be something better. There's no vision or policies or plan coming out of Labour, likewise out of the Lib Dems. And more people will say there's got to be something different. There has to be something out there. And that's where we're at. And
yeah, I mean, I think it's a very sensible way to go looking at it. And I'm guessing, because obviously right now the current theme and season is the cost of living crisis and everything else, and with the recovery plan. Because I'm guessing at some point, because on the website that you guys have, you talk about a lot of other issues like the border security. Are we going to soon hear more about the Dover issues, the legal migration issues?
We've been talking about it quite a bit on social media and on radio and TV. We're very clear. Last week showed without hesitation that we have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. Frankly, we don't need lessons from anybody about human rights. We literally invented the things. We really did. From way back, actually, in terms of individual rights, the first was 1,000 years ago with the Magna Carta, for heaven's sake. But, we founded the ECHR, but it's moved on from its original purpose and intention to something completely different. It's now basically a politically biased court. It's completely unaccountable. And it's there's no transparency within what goes. Here we are a week later. We still don't know the name of the single judge who made that judgment.
No.
The United Kingdom wasn't allowed to represent itself at the hearing. This is totally unacceptable. So we've got to leave that. And the great joy of that is we understand, of course, it wasn't part of the European Union. But the truth is, in order to properly take back control, in order to complete Brexit, we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR. Bring in our own British Bill of Rights. Be proud of our abilities and be proud of our legal and judicial system that approved the Rwanda flights at 3 separate levels of our judicial system, and say, actually, we've got one of the most admired, trusted and respected legal systems in the world. We don't need anyone else to tell us what to do. We'll do it ourselves. We can still lead by example, have all the same, proposals that the ECHR has, but we're in control. It's us. It's our own lawyers. It's our own judges, and we can trust it.
I could not agree more. I want to say massive thank you to Richard Tice, the leader of Reform UK, for coming on the show, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm Tice, and we are the media.